What's going on, guys? Nathan here. Today we're going to talk about the 5 things that, quite frankly, you will never see a good poker player do. When I see anybody do one of these 5 things at the poker table, I know that's the mark, that's the weak player, and I'm going to be heavily targeting that player, trying to get in as many pots as possible against them. So let's jump into it. Counting down from 5 to 1, here we go. So number 5, guys, is checking top pair. Guys, this is a classic sign of our fishy friends. This is what recreational players love to do. By the way, I'm going to walk you through example hands for every single tip today on this list. But guys, the bottom line here is good poker players, they know that top pair does not come around very often. This is a very strong hand in poker and you need to get full value. Recreational players, on the other hand, are always trying to get tricky because they've seen Daniel Negreanu make a check in $1 million cash game, but they don't realize that those kind of high-level plays are not going to work in their beginner-level home games or $1, $2 game at the casino. Let me give you an example. You've got Queen Jack offsuit, Queen of Hearts, and Jack of Diamonds, and by the river the board reads 10 Queen 4 7 9 with no possible flush. So guys, in this situation, if they check it to you on the river, you absolutely need to be betting for value here. I would suggest betting around 50% of the pot. Guys, let's run through just a few of the second best hands that they could conceivably call us with on this board. Ace 10, King 10, or Jack 10. All of those hands are a strong second pair on this board. Jack 9, which was a straight draw on the flop, could have definitely called us the whole way. That hand is paired up on the river. Pocket Jacks is another hand we beat, which could definitely conceivably call on this river. Guys, the bottom line is, in a situation like this where there are multiple, very likely second best hands that our opponent can have, it is an absolute disaster for your win rate here if you routinely get gun shy and check behind on this river. Guys, you always need to get full value with top pair hands like this. And by the way, the reason I suggest betting 50% of the pot here is because I've found that that's the sweet spot to often get a bunch of hands like this to pay you off on the river. Often if you bet too much, like 80-90% of the pot, a lot of good players in today's games will make a tough fold in a situation like this. And conversely, if you bet too little, such as 20% or only 30% of the pot, you're often not getting enough value because they would have called a little bit more. So guys, if the pot's 50 bucks on the river, bet $25 here with your top pair. Do not miss these key value bets on the river. All right, let's move on to tip number 4, and that is bluffing the fish. Guys, anytime I see somebody doing this, I know it is definitely wreck on wreck violence. A recreational player trying to bluff another recreational player. You can't get any better than that. But basically, guys, the moral of the story here is you cannot bluff a calling station in poker. By definition, that's what they like to do. They're going to call you down with any pair, any draw, anything. So if you don't have anything, they're just going to call you down with bottom pair. And not only are you going to lose the hand, but it's also going to get you frustrated and potentially put you on tilt and cause you to play worse in future hands as well. So let me give an example once again. You've got the old ace queen offsuit, ace of spades, and queen of diamonds versus a fish, one of our recreational friends. And on the river, the board reads the king of diamonds, jack of spades, 7 of diamonds, 4 of clubs, and 6 of diamonds. So let's break this down. There are 3 diamonds on the board, so a diamond flush is possible. We do block that hand because we have the queen of diamonds in our hand. However, this whole blocking thing has really gotten out of control in recent years. I'm going to make a whole video on that one day. People constantly saying that they can never have the flush here because we're blocking it. Guys, most 8-year-olds can do the math here. While we are blocking a flush technically with the queen of diamonds in our hand, that of course does not prevent them from having a flush here. It is a very small thing. But much more importantly, there are so many other hands here which have a pair, a straight, a 2 pair, anything at all. We know fish don't fold any of these hands. Let me walk you through just a few of them. Ace king, king queen, and king jack all have top pair or top 2 pair. On this board, ace jack beats us, queen jack beats us, jack 10, ace 7, 7 8, 7 6, 5 8 hit the straight on the river. Guys, if they've got even pocket 3s here, a lot of recreational players will call you down. Remember, we don't have anything at all. We have ace queen high and we block the flush draw. That's not much, guys, when you're up against a player like this that you know is going to call you down with anything. Once again, it's an absolute disaster for your win rate to try to bluff these kind of players. The best thing you can possibly do in this situation, and it's not even close, is to simply check and give up versus versus any kind of significant bet at all. Do not bluff the fish, guys, and you're going to have a lot more success at the poker tables. All right, guys, let's move on to thing number 3 that you will never see a good poker player doing, and that is calling with a bad kicker. Guys, this is the most classic sign of recreational poker players, and hands like ace jack and king jack are absolutely notorious for these. In fact, professional poker players routinely call these hands trap hands, and I'm going to give you an example of why right now. So you have king jack offsuit, king of hearts, and jack of spades. By the way, when I say offsuit, that just means that both cards are different suits. So the flop comes down with the king of clubs, 4 of diamonds, and 3 of spades. They bet, you call. Pretty standard stuff here. There's not really a huge point in raising in a situation like this because we're often only going to get action from a better hand, like an ace king, a king queen, a pocket fours, pocket aces. However, of course, our hand is much too strong to ever fold here. We do have top pair, so the clear number 1 play here is to just make the call, especially versus a competent player in this situation. So the turn comes down with the 7 of hearts. They bet and you decide to call again. Once again, guys, I think this is a pretty straightforward just call situation. Once again, there's not a whole lot of point in raising here if they're on some sort of wild bluff, because if they're on some sort of wild bluff, our raise here is just going to get them to throw those hands away. So there's no benefit for us in that situation. And if they do have one of the hands that is crushing us, as we just mentioned, they're just going to call or go all in. And it is also crucial to note that the one obvious straight draw on the flop, which is 5-6, did get there on the turn. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is now a made straight on this board. So once again, guys, super standard spot. We still have top pair with a good kickers. No real reason to fold at this point, but there's not really any reason to raise either. So the river comes down with the 4 of spades, and crucially, they bet again. Guys, serious alarm bells need to be going off in your mind here, because no competent player is likely to fire the 3rd shell against you. They bet the flop, turn, and river with some sort of airball bluff or a hand that we're ahead of. Once again, guys, always put yourself in their position at the poker table. If our opponent here has a hand like king 10 or king 9, do you really think they're going to bet all 3 streets again here? There's not too many good poker players out there these days that think that's a good idea, because they're not getting value from any worse. And of course, there's no point in bluffing with a hand like that because you have top pair. So this really only leaves a handful of complete airball bluffs like an ace queen or an ace jack, for example. But there's not too many players, especially in small and mid stakes games these days, that are actually capable of taking a hand like that and firing all 3 streets as a complete airball bluff. So what does this leave? This leaves big value hands. For example, ace king, pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket fours, pocket threes, pocket sevens, 5, 6, as mentioned for the straight. It should be mentioned also that the pairing of the 4 on the river also makes the bluff even less likely, because this is not a good card to be bluffing with on the river. It increases our value range. It makes it more likely that we are paired up on this board. So guys, for all of these reasons, versus any kind of decent player, you should absolutely be folding on this river. Guys, do not make the mistake that so many fishy players make in this spot of calling down with a bad kicker. We actually have an okay kicker in this hand, but the sequence of events in this hand is clearly telling us that our hand is no good at this point. All right, guys, let's move on to thing number 2 that you're never going to see any good poker players doing, and that is checking the flop. So guys, I've talked about this in many videos before. When you raise pre-flop, which you should, by the way, the vast majority of the time, you should also be making a c-bet on the flop the vast majority of the time. By the way, I explain all this in much greater detail in my free poker cheat sheet. It's a 60-page free guide showing you my entire strategy for small stakes poker games like this, and I'll link that up in the description below. But basically, guys, a c-bet stands for continuation bet in poker. So you raise before the flop, and now you're going to bet on the flop. You are continuing the aggression that you've already built before the flop. Let's give you an example. You've got ace queen offsuit, ace of hearts, queen of spades. You raise it up pre-flop, you get one color. Flop comes down with the 10, 5, 4 rainbow, and rainbow means 3 different suits, so there's no possible flush draw. So they check to you. What should you do in this spot, guys? Well, guys, this is a textbook situation where you just want to be making a c-bet of around 50% of the pot almost every single time. There's not really any reason, guys, on a very harmless dry flop like this where there's almost no draws at all to be checking back here. Again, this is what a lot of recreational players will do, and they'll do it for 2 reasons. The first is that they're just scared and they don't know what to do, and the second reason is once again they're trying to get too fancy because they saw Daniel Negreanu do that once in $1 million high stakes cash game. The first reason makes absolutely no sense, because we have ace queen, which literally means there's only one unpaired hand in the entire game that beats us at this point, which is ace king. Unlikely that they have that hand when they just called us pre-flop. Instead, they have so many other unpaired hands. Remember guys, when you go to see the flop in poker, you're going to miss the flop entirely 2 out of every 3 times. There's so many unpaired hands that we beat here, just to name a few: ace jack, ace 9, king queen, king jack, queen jack, 8 9. These are just a few of the hands guys that we are way ahead of with ace queen, so it's not necessarily even a bluff. And to address the second reason, no, you should absolutely never be getting fancy at a situation like this guys. When you're in position, they've already checked to you. Just make your c-bet in this spot guys. Keep things as simple as possible. Give them a reason to fold right now and take down the pot. All right guys, let's move on to my number one thing that you will never see any decent good player doing in today's games, and that is getting emotional over every single bad beat. Guys, this is the number one that separates good players from everybody else in today's games. It is the simple understanding that the game of poker is an endless emotional roller coaster. You're going to take endless bad beats in this game, and a bad beat, as I'm sure you might have experienced before, is when you get all your money in with the large statistical advantage and the recreational player gets lucky against you. For example, you've got 2 red aces, the best hand ever created, ace of hearts, ace of diamonds. If you simply go all in pre-flop and a bad player just blindly calls you with pocket sixes, guys, they're going to win the hand close to 20% of the time, which is not an insignificant amount. Guys, this is the reason why poker is so profitable, is because the weaker players like this get lucky sometimes. They could literally play the game blindfolded and they're going to have a 10%, a 15%, a 20% chance to win. There are not too many other games out there that have this integral element of luck built in. And the reason why this is important, once again, is because this allows them to keep blaming their losses on all of their so-called bad luck, which gets them coming back for more, reloading their account, putting more money back into the game, and ultimately fueling your profits. So guys, it is unbelievably important that you do not allow routine bad beats like this to affect your results at the poker table. It doesn't mean the site's rigged. It doesn't mean you're the most cursed poker player ever. It's actually just math. All right guys, like and subscribe if you found this video helpful. And once again, if you want to know my entire strategy to absolutely smash the small and mid stakes games, make sure you grab a copy of my free poker cheat sheet. That'll be the top link in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching guys. All the best at the poker tables, unless you're on mine.